A quiet teenager sits in a dim bedroom, the glow of a computer screen lighting his face. Thousands of miles away, inside one of the most protected buildings on Earth, a digital door quietly opens. Not with a bomb, not with a key, with a keyboard. The building is the Pentagon, the heart of the United States Department of Defense. And the person opening those doors is not a soldier, but a hacker. So the question is simple. How did one man manage to enter the digital walls of the Pentagon, and what did he find inside? The story begins in the late 1990s, when the internet was still young. Governments, companies, and militaries were rapidly connecting their systems online. Security was improving, but many networks were still built on trust rather than strict protection. In that environment, a British systems administrator named Gary McKinnon began exploring computer networks from his home in London. McKinnon was not part of a spy agency. He was not working for a government. According to his own later statements, he was searching for evidence related to secret technology and unidentified flying objects. But what he allegedly accessed shocked investigators. Between 2001 and 2002, authorities said he gained entry to dozens of U.S. government and military systems, including computers connected to the U.S. Army, U.S. Navy, and NASA. Some officials would later call it the biggest military computer hack of all time. And the most surprising part? Much of the access, investigators said, happened through systems that had no password at all.
In the early 2000s, Gary McKinnon was working as a systems administrator in London. Like many people in the tech community at the time, he spent long hours exploring networks and learning how computers communicated with each other. One night in 2001, according to court records, McKinnon began scanning large blocks of internet addresses, looking for computers running an operating system called Windows NT. These systems were widely used by governments and organizations. The scanning tool he reportedly used was a program that simply searched for computers with open connections. If a machine responded, it meant it was visible on the internet. And sometimes, visible meant vulnerable. According to prosecutors, McKinnon discovered that several U.S. military computers were accessible without strong passwords. Some systems, they said, were protected only by default login settings. Once inside, investigators later said, McKinnon installed a simple remote access program. This allowed him to return to the systems later without repeating the entire scanning process. Authorities claim that from 2001 to early 2002, he accessed nearly 100 computers connected to U.S. military and space agencies. These included systems tied to NASA, the U.S. Navy, and computers at the Pentagon. But McKinnon was not silent about what he believed he was doing. Years later, he said in interviews that his goal was to search for hidden information about advanced technology and unidentified flying objects. He claimed he was specifically looking for evidence of what he believed might be secret government space programs. According to the United States Department of Justice, McKinnon's activities caused significant disruptions to military systems. In one incident during 2002, officials said a U.S. Army network was temporarily shut down after unauthorized access was detected. The disruption reportedly affected computers connected to the U.S. Army Military District of Washington, which supports operations around the Pentagon. Investigators also claimed that several systems had important files deleted, forcing technicians to rebuild them from backups. The damage estimate, later cited by U.S. authorities, reached hundreds of thousands of dollars. What we know is that unauthorized access was detected across several government networks during that period. What remains debated is the full extent of the damage and what exactly was viewed or downloaded. Meanwhile, investigators began tracing the digital footprints left behind. Every computer leaves clues when it connects to another system: IP addresses, timestamps, and connection logs. According to prosecutors, these records eventually pointed back to a location in London. British authorities soon began cooperating with U.S. investigators. In 2002, the National High-Tech Crime Unit executed a search related to the investigation. Computers and storage devices were examined for evidence of network intrusion. McKinnon was later charged by U.S. prosecutors with multiple counts of computer intrusion. The charges carried the possibility of a long prison sentence if he were extradited to the United States. But the legal battle that followed would become almost as famous as the hack itself, because this case was no longer only about cybersecurity. It had become a debate about extradition, mental health, and international law. And for the next decade, the case of Gary McKinnon would remain one of the most controversial cybercrime stories in modern history.
Some people saw him as a reckless hacker who broke into sensitive military networks. Others saw him as a curious outsider who stumbled into systems that should have been better protected. But investigators had another question. If one person could allegedly reach these networks from a bedroom in London, what did that say about the security of some of the most important systems in the world? Because the real story might not be just about the hacker. It might also be about the doors that were left open.
To understand what really happened, investigators began gathering what they called digital evidence. Unlike fingerprints or cameras, cyber investigations rely on logs, server records, and connection histories. Each connection between computers leaves a small trail. And in this case, authorities said those trails pointed back to one person. According to an indictment filed by the United States Department of Justice, investigators traced repeated connections to U.S. military systems from a computer located in London. The connections reportedly used internet addresses associated with McKinnon's location. Network logs from multiple government systems showed unauthorized logins during late-night hours in the United Kingdom. These times matched when the hacker would likely have been awake and active online. Another piece of evidence came from the tools allegedly used during the intrusions. Investigators said McKinnon used a remote administration tool known as Remotely Anywhere. This program allows users to control computers from a distance. While the software itself is legal, authorities said it had been installed on compromised systems without permission. Remote Access Tool, software that allows someone to control another computer through the internet. Once installed, such a tool can allow someone to browse files, monitor activity, or return later without repeating the original hack. According to prosecutors, several government machines were found running the software after the intrusions were discovered. In one widely reported incident, officials said a system connected to the U.S. Army Military District of Washington was temporarily disabled after unauthorized access was detected. Technicians reportedly shut down parts of the network while investigating the intrusion. The United States Department of Defense later estimated that the cleanup and repairs cost approximately $700,000. This included restoring deleted files and strengthening security systems. However, some cybersecurity experts later suggested the true financial impact was difficult to measure. Restoring systems and improving security often becomes part of broader upgrades. Authorities also said McKinnon left traces in the form of usernames used during the intrusions. One of the usernames allegedly used was Solo. Investigators reported finding this identifier across multiple systems accessed during the same period. Sometimes hackers do this intentionally. Sometimes it happens because the same tools are reused across different networks. In interviews years later, Gary McKinnon did not deny accessing government systems. Instead, he said he had been searching for specific information. In a 2006 interview with the BBC, McKinnon stated that he believed he had discovered references to what he described as non-terrestrial officers in a military spreadsheet. However, investigators have never publicly confirmed that such documents existed. Cyber investigators focused on the unauthorized access itself rather than the specific files McKinnon claimed to have seen. According to prosecutors, the case centered on computer intrusion rather than classified discoveries. The evidence presented by U.S. authorities led to formal charges in 2002. McKinnon was indicted on several counts of computer fraud and unauthorized access. If convicted in the United States, he could have faced a prison sentence of up to 70 years. But the story was far from over, because the next chapter would not unfold in a computer lab or a military base. It would unfold in courtrooms and in the public debate about fairness, law, and mental health.
Even though investigators presented evidence of unauthorized access, the case quickly became controversial. Some cybersecurity experts argued that the intrusions revealed serious weaknesses in government systems. If a single individual could allegedly access multiple networks from home, critics said it showed how fragile early internet security had been. Others argued that the legal consequences being proposed were too severe. Supporters of Gary McKinnon believed extraditing him to the United States could lead to an extremely long prison sentence for what they viewed as nonviolent hacking. The debate spread across both the United Kingdom and the United States. Some people saw McKinnon as a reckless intruder who endangered sensitive military systems. Others described him as a curious computer enthusiast who exposed security problems. There were also questions about the exact level of damage caused. While U.S. authorities reported significant repair costs, some observers noted that public details about specific files or systems affected remained limited. Another major factor emerged during the legal fight. McKinnon's legal team argued that he had been diagnosed with Asperger syndrome, which they said affected his judgment and behavior. They argued that extraditing him could have serious effects on his mental health. The issue shifted the conversation. The case was no longer only about cybersecurity. It had become a broader question about justice and human impact.
For more than 10 years, the legal battle surrounding Gary McKinnon continued. During that time, he lived under the uncertainty of possible extradition to the United States. Court hearings, appeals, and political debates stretched across a decade. McKinnon's family and supporters campaigned publicly against extradition. They argued that he should face any legal consequences in the United Kingdom rather than in a foreign court. The campaign gained attention from activists, politicians, and media outlets. The debate eventually reached senior levels of the British government. In 2012, the UK Home Office announced that extradition would not proceed. Home Secretary Theresa May stated that extraditing McKinnon would pose a serious risk to his health. This decision effectively ended the long legal struggle. McKinnon would not be sent to the United States, but the broader questions about cybersecurity remained. The case had shown that cyber actions taken in one country could affect systems in another. It also demonstrated how complex international cybercrime investigations could become.
Cybersecurity experts often compare computer networks to cities. Each server is like a building, each login is like a door, and every password is a lock. If too many doors are left unlocked, eventually someone will walk inside. The McKinnon case became an early example of how vulnerable internet-connected systems could be. In the early 2000s, many organizations were still learning how to defend against online intrusion. Security practices that are common today, such as strong encryption and multi-factor authentication, were not widely used at the time. Multi-factor authentication, logging in using more than one proof, like a password and phone code. Cyber experts say the case helped push governments to strengthen digital defenses. After the incident, many agencies increased security monitoring and improved password policies. But the story also raised deeper ethical questions. Where is the line between curiosity and crime? And how should societies respond when technology moves faster than the laws designed to regulate it? So here is what we know. A British computer administrator was accused of entering dozens of US military and government systems during the early days of the internet. Investigators traced digital connections back to London and filed criminal charges. What remains debated is exactly what information was accessed and how much damage occurred. And one more question still lingers. What lessons did the world learn from this case?
Today, cybersecurity has become one of the most important areas of national security. Governments now treat cyber intrusions as serious threats, sometimes even comparable to traditional espionage. One likely future scenario is continued investment in stronger digital defenses. Confidence level? High. Countries around the world are increasing funding for cybersecurity teams and infrastructure. Another possibility is stronger international agreements on cybercrime investigations. Because cyber attacks often cross borders, governments may seek clearer legal frameworks for cooperation. And a final possibility involves public awareness. As technology becomes more central to daily life, individuals and organizations alike must understand how digital security works. The story of Gary McKinnon is not only about one hacker and one network intrusion. It is also a reminder that the digital world connects everyone, from bedrooms to government buildings, and sometimes the smallest actions online can echo across the globe.